Welcome to Master Your Life series. My next guest is author of Keeping It Real in Commercial Real Estate, president of Current Capital Group in South Florida, which manages well over $1 billion of commercial real estate. Welcome, Todd Nepola. How are you today?
I'm fantastic, Sonny. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know what? I've been following you for a while, and I noticed you've been in real estate for well over a couple of decades, if not 3 decades now. What made you decide to pursue a career in commercial real estate? Let's start off with real estate in general.
Yeah. Well, it was commercial real estate, so you got it right both times.
Okay.
And, I love to tell this story because a lot of people think that, they could visualize their future and you know what you're going to do. And certainly the young generation all ask me all the time at 20 how they want to figure out their lives. And the truth is I was a stockbroker and doing investment banking deals. And around 22, 23, 24, I realized that I was solely dependent on commissions to make a living. Mm-hmm. And although you're doing very well and you're getting paid well as a salesperson, there's no longevity in that other than going to work every single day. So I started looking for sources of income, which now became trendy to call it cash flow. But ultimately, at that point in time, it was just, how can I make some money in my sleep? And I like to tell the story that I almost bought into a chain of payphones because back then it was a good investment, which thank God I didn't buy payphones. But I looked at ATM machines. I looked at franchise models. And one of the things I always kind of knew about, but I looked into was real estate. And I was kind of lucky because it was really bad timing in the real estate market. It was right after the savings and loan crisis of the late 80s and early 90s. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of property for sale. So there was a beautiful warehouse that I saw that the owner had built and went into foreclosure. And I would look at it and I kind of ran the numbers and I said, this guy owed the bank $1.2 million. They're only asking $600,000. And that doesn't include the land that the guy had put into it. I said, how bad of a deal could it be? So I bought the property with no real commercial real estate expertise. I got a bank account. I got a sales tax number. I went to Office Depot and bought new leases. Mm-hmm. I rented it. I cleaned it up. And within 6 months from buying it, refinanced it, cashed out. And I had that cash flow and I was hooked. So that's how I wound up in the real estate business.
Right. And you started off with leasing properties at the beginning, right?
No, I was actually in my own property. I did lease it. Yeah. But in the beginning, I had nothing to do with real estate whatsoever. I wasn't licensed, didn't plan on doing real estate.
Wow.
But it seemed like a good model. And that particular model, now you're going back to January of 1999, mm-hmm. I had all my money cashed out and I was getting about $5,000 a month in free cash flow. And I was at that point, I just turned 26 years old. It was all the money in the world for a single guy.
Absolutely.
So I was hooked, and that's when I got addicted to it.
That's a beautiful thing. You mentioned that you were looking at multiple different streams of, like we say, cash flow now at a different time. I mean, nowadays we'll see on our phones different opportunities, banking machines, all that kind of stuff. What made you strive for that information? How did you find it? Because it's readily available, but it's not like it's advertised. What made you think outside of the box like that?
I had a mentor who didn't know he was my mentor many years ago, and it's Tony Robbins, who's still one of my favorite people on the planet. I'm so lucky to have met him. I think he's great.
Absolutely.
And regardless of what people want to say about, motivating skill sets or anything, you can take a lot of positive out of what he says. And he was telling a story at one of his seminars when I was probably 21 and 22. And he was telling the story about how wealthy he is, but only if he works. And how his friend who had a lot less money was telling him one day on the ski slope that he's richer than Tony is.
Yeah.
And Tony got all, no, you're not. I make a lot more money than he goes, yeah, but right now, Tony, you're skiing and you're paying to be here. And I'm in this business that pays me without working. And that's when Tony realized, he said, it was a wake-up call that I only get paid to go to work. And he was the one preaching the values of finding businesses that you would earn money in your sleep. That was the trendy thing back then. Wow. And from learning about it from him, I said, he's on to something here. And since I believed that, I started going down that direction too.
That's amazing. So Tony Robbins ended up planting the seed in your mind as well to begin that way. That's beautiful.
Absolutely.
You know what? That reminds me of the book. You mentioned that Awaken the Giant is one of your favorite books as well. There's a quote in the book that says, know that your decisions, not your conditions, determine your destiny. And what do you think about that quote? How does that impact you?
It's 100% true. And I've even made some content myself on social media talking about we are living a life that our past decisions have led us to here, whether they're good or bad. And you could absolutely decide in one moment to change your life. And it's just like that, you change. Tony is a big sayer all the time that, people don't quit smoking, or it doesn't take 5 years. It takes 1 second to decide that's my last cigarette.
Yeah.
And the decisions that we make when we're younger lead us to where we are today. So I'm humbled and blessed that I could do podcasts with guys like you and write a book from my experiences. But that's only because I put off buying the Lamborghini at 25 years old and bought a commercial property. I would be in a totally different world right now if I spent money differently back then. So your decisions will dictate your outcomes.
Absolutely. And pertaining to the decisions, I know you mentioned that your decisions will dictate the outcomes. I mean, I think a lot of people in today's society, I mean, in North America, especially the middle class, we chat or I saw online as well, is that the middle class potentially is going through this right now, right? As a whole. Do you think that there is a way for people that are feeling maybe a little bit helpless, or that things don't feel like there's a positive light at the end of the tunnel, but there is opportunity available in today's market?
There's always opportunity. And we all know for a fact that you're going to put on the news right now and there's going to be some new 17-year-old kid who created a new app, or some 40-year-old guy who sells his company for $1 billion to, Amazon or whatever it's going to be. So there's always opportunity, but you got to go look for the opportunity. Mm-hmm. And once you kind of find it, you also have to take action. So a guy like you could spend so much time doing these fantastic podcasts, but the next hurdle is not just teaching, it's taking action. And people stop right before they take the action. So they have all this information, they have all these great ideas, but they don't press go. And that's what holds them back. So the biggest push is to get them to take that first step.
Like people say, the fear of the unknown sometimes holds people back, but that's where the growth is, right?
100%.
All right. Can you share a pivotal moment in your experience where that significantly changed how you operate business? Was there like a life event that happened, a loss, health crisis, anything like that that kind of changed your trajectory or motivated you?
There's so many I could give, but since we're discussing business and real estate, there's always things that happen, whether it's a health issue, a family issue, a friend issue, but when it comes to business, what happened to me is I was doing very well in the stock world in the 1990s. And as everybody knows, in late 1999, early 2000, the tech bubble burst. And we weren't making any more money. But at that point, I already owned a bunch of real estate and a bunch of properties. So I said, I don't need to be in stocks anymore. I could retire. I was 28 years old. I said, I'll retire and just manage my properties and play golf every day. And I started doing that. And I was buying more properties. That's when I started managing and leasing my properties full time. And everything was going great. But at the time, I hadn't even been married yet. So then I went and got married. Then I had a kid. Then I had another kid. I moved from my first house, bought this big house for my second house. Then I got my third car. Then I got my boat. And everything was great until 2008. And in 2007 and 8, when the market tanked, my properties were fine because I never took on a lot of debt and I ran them very carefully. So paying the bills for the property was no problem. Paying my bills was a problem because the tenant who was paying me $2,000 needed to go to $1,500. The $1,500 needed to go to $1,200. So I had to start burning through my savings. And it was at that moment that I was watching my savings account go chugga down that I said, I am never going to make this mistake again. I will not use my investment property money to live anymore. And that's when we really got really heavy into doing a lot of third-party property management leasing services. And that's when we really built the hell out of Current Capital because we expanded tremendously because the market was tough. So at that point, we were a small company. And within 2 years, we grew exponentially. And I would say by 2010, I've never touched my real estate money again for personal recurring expenses. I only use my investment money to buy more property. And when you follow guys that are the richest, like Warren Buffett, when they tell you the best compounding is to put your money back into more deals, I can tell you the growth is so fast because all the cash flow coming in only goes back into more real estate. So it just grows. It grows super fast.
Wow, that's huge. So, the negative that happened, you ended up putting more into it to catapult yourself to a more positive situation. Yeah. What are some tools and strategies you've leveraged in the past for personal development? Like whether it's waking up early or having a routine, what things for yourself work really well for you?
For me, reading. Top three. I mean, obviously I'm very into fitness and staying healthy, eat well, work out, do all that kind of stuff. But I was not a good student. I couldn't get into any college. My grades were so bad. I'm not embarrassed to say it. My SAT score was a 720 and I wound up in community college. So the educational aspect wasn't there. But once I started reading, which started in probably my early to mid 20s, probably 22, 21, 22, I got addicted to books. And I realized that you could get so smart by reading books by people and things you're interested in, that even the things I hated in school, like I hated history, was to say, it happened, who cares? I love to read about history. But when I could read the life story of someone who's a successful business person that's done something for 30, 40 years in 250 pages, and they're telling me about their childhood till their retirement, I'm getting such an edge in life because I'm learning so much. So nothing has helped me more than reading.
Wow.
And available to everybody forever. And if you don't believe in college, I really don't care. You
Yep.
still must believe in education.
That's amazing. You know, that's so true. Reading books can definitely give you that almost like it's a life hack, right? You don't have to go for 4 years of
Absolutely.
school. You can read somebody's life story in a few days, right? Uh,
Sure. And it's not just business. I mean, I read things on, marital advice. I read things on fitness advice. I read things on selling. I mean, so anything you want is out there. If you want to learn how to needlepoint, for God's sakes, you can find anything's out there.
yeah,
So read it.
right. It's all the answers are there, right? Just got to look for them,
That's
right?
right.
Let's talk about your book. Let's talk about current the book of Keeping It Real in Real Estate, Commercial Real Estate.
That's right. Here it is.
Let's talk a little bit about it. What does it talk about? What are some of the topics and themes about it?
All right. So I'll just go back a little. So I started in my office wanting to give back and do charitable events more so than just writing checks. So I started bringing interns in. And then from that, I really got juiced up about watching kids as young as 17 years old coming into my office, loving real estate, loving business. And not just because they wanted to earn a lot of money, because you could see them finding like a future for themselves. So from there, I started doing a lot of podcasts and talking to guys. And that's when I got the idea to write a book. And it's a lot harder to write a book than I ever thought it was. There was no chat GPT a couple of years ago to help me write the book. So I wrote the book. And I wrote the whole book and I sent it to an editor to correct it. And he sent it back and I read it and I said, and this book is horrible. And I threw it away and started again.
Oh, really?
So
wow.
A writer of a book gave me some great advice. And I said, I'm struggling. And he said, you need to know who's reading your book and write your book directly to that person. Mm-hmm. So I decided to write the book to my intern, to a 17, 18, 19-year-old kid who knows nothing about real estate. And I tell him my story, how I started, what I did when I was young, the kind of things I did in sales jobs, whether it was telemarketing, whatever, then becoming a stockbroker, very short. And then I get into how I started in real estate, what I did, the kinds of properties I buy. But I also add into the book other kinds of ways to get into real estate, whether you want to be just an investor, if you want to buy triple net properties, if you want to buy, publicly traded companies. I give every gamut of real estate that one can invest in, because to me, there's really no better investment on the planet than real estate.
Yeah.
You could get lucky. I know if you bought Bitcoin, 6 months ago, you're telling me it did better than real estate, but over the long term, nothing's going to do better than real estate, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And I agree with you on that.
So that's the book.
Yeah. That's the book. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about, you said the word Lamborghini, right? You didn't buy the Lamborghini at 25. Did you indulge in some of those things afterwards you mentioned, right? So what kind of cars are we talking about here? Like you said, you bought the car afterwards, yeah. Right?
I've had every car, and it's gonna upset the younger generation. People don't have it. The truth is, every car you could dream of becomes just a car at some point. Cars are easy because you can park them in a garage. If I live in a condo, so even having a lot of cars for me sometimes becomes a burden, because I leave a couple in my office building. I leave one at my mom's house because she has an extra parking space. So they're scattered around.
Okay.
So it becomes a responsibility. But it's great when you can buy these things, but you need to be able to buy these things with independent cash flow from investments. You need to be taking the money and put it into assets that are going to pay you for life. So before you go and let's say you land $300,000 in your hand, before you go and buy yourself a Ferrari for $300,000, you need to invest that $300,000. And you're not going to have Ferrari money. So if you're lucky enough to get 10%, you got 30 grand a year coming in, you could go buy yourself a nice BMW or Mercedes. You're not ready for the Ferrari. Once the asset can buy you these cars, and if you still want them, go right ahead. But don't be buying these assets because we all know they're going to depreciate. So don't buy those assets with hard cash. Buy assets that will appreciate and use the cash flow to buy the toys. And there's nothing wrong with toys. I have plenty of toys, and we know they're worth nothing in the end of the day other than happiness. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. But don't put that ahead of buying real assets.
That's some great advice. I mean, I've had some people in the past that would be asking advice about purchasing a fancy car, and they would put it to liability at the end of the day, right? If they're not going to be growing their net worth. All right. So what will you give for, so if somebody's looking to invest in commercial real estate right now, what kind of net worth do you think that they would have to have if they're just a single family owner to get into the market? So people can kind of realize how close they may be. What do you think the easiest deal to get into could be?
I've done so many hundreds of podcasts and no one's asked that question. So that's amazing. And I'm glad, Jessica. I don't even say that in my book. But the truth is, you don't need what you think you need. You never need what you think you need. And I believe for people, there's a million ways to invest, but I'm going to specifically say you want to buy your own property. You could invest in a duplex, and if you have good credit, with about 5% down. And I highly encourage everybody who wants to get into real estate to get their real estate license. Your real estate commission could be 3%. You can need 2, 3, 4% of the purchase price to get into your first deal with certain kinds of loans.
Mm.
I don't recommend being that leveraged, but you technically could. I would rather see you be over leveraged to get into your first deal and scratch and claw in just to get your foot in the deal. But I don't recommend somebody, no matter what your net worth is, to go in and buy a multi-million dollar property for the first one. Just buy a small one. Understand what it is. If you like it, get bigger. But nobody really starts this by buying these beautiful, shopping centers for tens of millions of dollars. So if your first property is a duplex or a triplex or something like that, or a little strip center with 4 stores, you could get into these deals even in South Florida for just a couple of $100,000, and obviously going to get a loan. So let's say you buy one for $400,000 in Florida. You could buy that with $120,000, $130,000 down as your first time purchase on a commercial deal. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get rich off that deal. You're going to get in the game. And that's what it takes. You got to get in the game, and then you got to improve that property, make it better, prove who you are. And in the next property, you could use the upside that you created in the first one to go buy the second one. And now the bank's starting to believe in you. So maybe you could put a little bit less money down and you have a lot more options. But it's not really hard to get in the game.
So it is possible for a lot of people in the market right now to actually do that rather than going into other different
things. It's very possible. And even though a lot of people say there's no deals out there, there are a lot of deals at that level at the 500,000 and less, because guys like me who are aggressive buyers, it's too small for us to buy unless I need it because it's assembling land. Mm-hmm. I don't want to go buy a $500,000 property anymore, because for me it's just as much work as a $25 million property. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking for the bigger ones. So these little ones are owned by private people and they sell, and your local realtors will find you these deals too. So they're mm-hmm. out there.
Especially in today's market, there should be some more possibility available. Okay. Yeah. Now, there's certain tools that you can't buy, you can't learn, I feel. Guess maybe I'll ask you that question. Are there certain tools that somebody must have generally as a person in order to become successful in commercial real estate, whether it's character or patience or?
Patience is a tough one, because I know you need patience to earn a lot of money, but I'm not patient. I'm always attacking, going after the deal. So I wouldn't recommend you be patient, but understand it's going to take time. So it's a little different than patience. The greatest qualities you could have, which I do believe could be learned, is you must be an optimist. You must believe that tomorrow is a better day, because so much stuff that we see out there, and I see it too, especially on social media and the news, it's all doom and gloom. Mm-hmm. So if the world's going to fall apart, why the hell do I want to take my last 200 grand and buy a shopping center? I'd rather go to Dubai on vacation.
Yeah.
So the world's not coming to an end. Nothing's going to happen. But if you have a long-term time frame, you got to believe that it's going to be a better day, and you got to believe in yourself that you could do what you say you're going to do. Mm-hmm. It's very scary the first time you buy a property. I don't care who you are. It's scary. But you got to get over that hurdle. Everything's scary the first couple of times. But being an optimist is probably the greatest thing you can be, and you got to train yourself that things are going to be okay.
And that's what you've applied from those previous ups and downs in the markets, right? Are you able to kind of not forecast? Nobody can really forecast the future, but do you feel like you have almost a sixth sense now? Like you kind of can see what's happening in the market, read between the lines, so to speak?
Yeah, I do feel that. It's not a Zen-like quality. It's an experience quality. And unfortunately, the only reason I got there is because I made it to 51 years, and I've been buying properties since 26 years old. So it comes with age. And when I sit down with guys that have been doing this, that they're in their 70s now, they have a lot more experience than me. But unfortunately, the only way to get experience is to utilize time. Right. So it takes a lot of time. That's why I think, like we said, reading is a great hack, because you can get a lot of experience quickly that way. But when you've done something so long and for so many years, you start to get resilient to it.
Absolutely. And let's talk a little bit about your outside of the business. What's Todd like outside of business? What are your hobbies, sports? What kind of things do you like to do outside of business?
Todd's amazing outside of business. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very active. I'm very high energy. I do love what I do. So even though it is a business, it's a sport for me. It's a game for me. I have the luxury of always saying, if I don't want to do it anymore, I don't have to. And when you have that luxury, it really becomes even more fun, because you're not forced to do a deal. Mm-hmm. As far as activities, I like to go out. I like to travel. I work out a lot. I compete in a lot of triathlons, and I just did a half marathon a few weeks ago.
Wow.
I'm going to do my first Spartan race next month, which I've never done, and I don't know why I signed up, but I'll take the pain. Yeah. My brother made me do it, truthfully.
Oh, is that right?
So
okay.
He loves that stuff. So I like to keep very active. I do believe that you really can't cheat in that department. If you're not taking good physical care of yourself, you're not eating well, and you're not taking care of your health and your wellness and working out in the gym, you really can't be so successful financially for the long haul, because if you sacrifice your health, you're going to be using all that money to recover your health when you're older. So you really got to find a way to take care of yourself and eat well. And I've seen a lot of guys get so obsessed with making money in business that you don't see them for 3 years. They come back, and they gain 50 pounds. They're smoking a cigarette and drinking a whiskey at 3 in the afternoon. And for that, don't get the money. Don't give up your health.
Yeah, it's not worth it for that, right?
Yeah.
All right. We're going to go shift gears into thinking about the future and optimism. What's your outlook on commercial? What's your outlook, I guess, globally, the next 10, 20 years? What is your sense, feeling, or your experience telling us what the commercial real estate and just the landscape's going to look like?
I think the world in 20 years from now is going to be so much better than it is today. I think that it's been proven over time that the way we live today, people 50 years ago, the richest people on the planet couldn't live as well as the poorest person does today. The accessibility to things, technology, AI, none of it scares me. It all excites me because I think we'll find amazing cures to cure diseases and live longer. I think technology is making things safer, although we see horrible situations much quicker because of, we're online 24 hours a day. The world will get better and better and safer. I don't know if there'll be world peace. I don't think you'll ever see that. But I believe this younger generation is so much smarter than my generation, certainly the ones before me. And I think that this generation is starting to really learn that school is not going to set you up for the rest of your life. Your goal isn't to learn as much as you can. Your goal is to learn how to apply it. And every bit of information anybody could want right now is in their iPhone. And Siri will give you the answer to just about anything that ChatGPT can't. So how do they apply this information? So it's a lot less important for these young generations to go to school and study everything as it is to learn how to get access to it quickly and utilize it. So for me, I love the future. I think the next generation, even though some people think they're screwed up, I think they're amazing. I think they're brilliant. And I'm happy being in their hands. Let them take care of me when I get older. For real estate, I think I can't speak globally because I don't really know. I don't really even know much outside of the state of Florida. But in the United States, I think our country will continue to grow. I'm a big believer that immigration is a good thing. And I think this country was built on immigrants, and not letting people in is not the right belief. And if we ever really stop that, we'll be in trouble. But so long as people want to come to this country, we'll keep growing exponentially, and more people, more opportunities, and more growth. So that'll always help the real estate landscape.
Wow, that's beautiful. I love what you said. Not just to learn, but learn how to apply, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, what has been your career highlight? And what has been your career highlight overall? Like something that sticks out the most?
I know people are going to say it's when I made the most money, but it's not, because the truth is that does fade. Once you can pay your bills, that fades. The biggest career highlight I have now is teaching young people. And as you probably know too, I'd say it's probably around 6 months ago, I finally started going on social media and posting a lot of posts. And I have a great team I work with. These guys at School of Hard Knocks helped me. Yeah. They gave me the idea. They helped me with all the social media. I would never have the patience or time to do what they could do. So when I started hearing from people and talking to people and seeing these amazing questions that people are asking, and again, I don't mind. I love it when it's a 30 and 40-year-old, but when I have a 17-year-old kid flies down from Pennsylvania, I had to get it approved with his dad to make sure his dad was okay with it, because he wants to meet me. And this young man comes to my office in a suit and tie, and he wants to learn about real estate and spend a day with me. It's so humbling and so rewarding for me. That's the highest of high, that I could teach the next generation what I've learned, because I want them to take over and I want them to motivate me too.
That's beautiful. And I really appreciate that you're doing that for the community. And just when I saw you online, it gave me an extra boost as well to want to connect with you. And I appreciate you giving me the opportunity.
Thank you.
And I guess we'll move to the next question. What is one skill that has allowed you to master your life?
One skill, I would say the biggest thing that's helped me is salesmanship. And I'd recommend everybody reads a lot of books on salesmanship. And, you could go back to the old books from written in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. Those sales skills will be just as good as a book written in 2023, maybe even better. And sales never changes. And you have to recognize that I don't care what business you're in, you're always going to be selling. And when people say, there's only a born salesperson, I don't believe that. I believe sales can be learned. I think anything could be learned. So you have to learn to sell, because whether you're trying to get a property to buy it, whether you're trying to get a job, you're trying to get into that impossible restaurant or get a date with a beautiful person you don't think you have a shot with, it's all sales. you're trying to make friends with your neighbor because you want to use his parking spot like I need to do. It's all sales and convincing people. That doesn't mean hurting them, taking advantage of them, but you need to convince people if you want to get something. If you see a good-looking person, you want to get a date, you got to convince them to go out with you is the prerequisite to start dating.
That's exactly right.
You're not taking advantage. You just have to learn how to do these things. That's all sales. So in my business, in my life, the greatest tool I have is salesmanship.
Salesmanship. Awesome. They say a good salesman guides you to the answer. And how do you feel about that? You make the decision, we just give you the information. Yeah,
I agree. It always reminds me of that movie was called Inception. I just put the idea in your head and make you want
it. That's right. I just planted the seed, right?
Right.
What are some upcoming events, projects, or ventures you're currently excited about, and what we should be looking out for?
My company is still doing the same thing. We're growing. We do manage and lease a lot of property. We own a good percentage of it. We do a third party. So we've been growing. As far as any new deals for us, it's been really tough to buy a property. In fact, in all of 2023, we didn't buy any, and I didn't really see anybody get any deals that were so fantastic. We have one property under contract now. We'll close. So there's really nothing per se so exciting. I'm just always excited about what I do. So even though, I'm just very lucky that I'm in South Florida. The economy's been so strong, but even though we're not getting new deals, there's nothing new coming to the plate, it's still a lot of fun to keep doing what we're doing. I am looking to start, getting involved down the road with teaching in some schools. I'd love to teach a course. I have a friend who's in the hospitality, and I look at him, his name, you might know who he is, Dave Grutman. He's like the king of Miami nightlife and restaurants. And he actually teaches a course at FIU. And I said, it's such an amazing way to give back, to take these skills and go teach college kids and high school kids. So I'm looking to do more stuff like that. I don't know if I'm going to write another book because I like the result. I didn't find it fun to do it. But I certainly want to teach more down in the future, and that's one thing I'm looking forward to doing as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, they have ChatGPT now, just in case if we want to write a second book. Right?
Yeah, but that would be cheating.
100%. It wouldn't be truthful, right? A little bit about Florida. Maybe I'll ask you a question as well. My wife and I were chatting about potentially moving or buying a property out there. You, of course, have been there for a number of decades now. And what do you see the future of Florida? The way it's going right now, it's been great for the last few years.
It's been great for the last few decades. The truth is South Florida's been growing. What's happened, basically, as everyone speaks about during COVID, is a lot of people moved here because of COVID, because their states weren't open. And it wasn't so much the average person. It was really the rich people, because rich people have rich people options, which is, I have my apartment in Manhattan, but I'll go buy a $10 million apartment in Miami Beach because I don't want to be on lockdown and I don't like what's happening in the environment. However, what we're starting to see now is a lot of these people are migrating back up north. So we moved to Florida. My parents moved here when I was in high school, so obviously I had no choice, but it was a desired move. They wanted to leave New York and move to Florida. It's very hard to move and stay when you move for a situation like COVID. You left your home of worship, you left your doctors, you left your school, you left your family. So they're all starting to go back. The good thing is, because a lot of them are so rich, they're not selling their places. So it hasn't been like everyone put their stuff for sale, but you are seeing that the migration downward in like the schools and the people leaving because they want to go back home. And as things get back to normal in New York and California, they'll head back. Those are still great states. Don't count them out.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the future for Florida is always going to be great because, look, today it's March 13th and the weather's beautiful. It's 80 degrees, not a cloud in the sky, no humidity, and people want to be in our big blue ocean. So we'll always be okay.
Oh, that's amazing. I guess we're moving to the final section here. How can listeners connect with yourself? I know social media, we have according to life life according to Todd, and then currentcapital.com as well, right? And any other ways people can connect with you directly if they wanted to just reach out online?
Yeah, look, I'm always available. I always tell people, if you're seriously trying to do a deal, you're seriously need help, feel free to just call my office, 954-966-8181. I take 2, 3, 4 calls a day. If I can't take it, I'll schedule it for later. I'm happy to jump on a Zoom if people want help. I do invite people to my office a couple of times a year, and sometimes people just stop by and say hello. If you are interested in real estate, like we talked about, my book has all my contact information. And again, I'm happy to shamelessly keep plugging it because when I wrote this book, I give all proceeds to charity. So you're learning about real estate, and I'm not going to make a dime. It's going to go to good causes. So there's a lot of ways to learn. But, of course, on my social media, I'm there too, and you can get a lot of feedback from me. And I do reply to people's comments there myself personally. That part I do. So that's how you get me.
That's how we got each other. You replied to one of my comments, and I was like, wow, like Todd and I connected there, and just one thing led to another, and now we're here. Todd, I can't thank you enough. Thank you for us giving us the opportunity to connect with you today. I look forward to connecting with you soon. Is there any other message you want to give out to the young or aspiring people in the world right now?
Yeah, I appreciate that last comment. I've had a great time with you too. Thank you for considering me. I'm always very happy to do it. And glad I met you, Sonny. And anyone of any age, it really doesn't matter what age you are, but mostly for the young people, is don't put so much pressure on yourself for what you could accomplish in 1 or 2 or 3 years. Think a little longer out. People really do tend to overestimate what we could do in 1 year, but underestimate 10. So if you're 25 years old trying to figure out where you're going to be at 30 and 40, don't put so much pressure on yourself to be rich in a year or two, or have the career of your life, or the partner of your life in a year or two. Give yourself some time, have a little bit of longer term plan, and don't be so hard on yourself. Just do the best you can.
Beautiful. Todd, thank you so much for your time today. I'll chat with you soon, all right?
It's been an absolute pleasure, Sonny. Thank you very
You
much.
too. Thanks, Todd. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.